Oh god, he's back. Just when you felt that you'd seen the last Elmo had to offer on the Nintendo 64, he's shown up once again. This time, instead of a letter adventure, he's having a number journey. But just like its sister game, Elmo's Number Journey is simply a game for the very youngest gamers, and everyone else should be steering clear of this ghastly title. Developed by Realtime Associates and published by NewKidCo, Elmo's Number Journey formed part of the Sesame Street series which the studio planned to release a slew of on the Nintendo 64. Despite many people believing otherwise, research even told them that the core N64 ownership was by over 18s. And so perhaps seeing a gap in the market that didn't actually exist, they took it upon themselves to release these garbage titles aimed at the very youngest of gamers. If you haven't seen my review of Elmo's Letter Adventure from a few years ago now, and trust me I don't blame you if you haven't, then perhaps go and watch that first because there's honestly so little to differentiate the two games. It's almost unbelievable that they had the gall to release these as two separate games instead of putting them both on the same cartridge at the very least. And even if they had have done that, the game still would have been extremely poor value. In summary, you take control of Elmo as he embarks on an adventure of Zelda proportions, to learn more about numbers. You'll travel across huge, vast, open world areas in order to do so, and by that I mean there's a total of 3 mini-games which take a few minutes each to complete. There's a huge amount of challenge in the game, and by that I mean there's 3 difficulty levels, and even on the hardest you'll breeze through it without even warming up the old grey matter. Perhaps the highlight of the game is coming into contact with the other characters. With a huge range of lovable characters in the Sesame Street world, it's a shame that they didn't make more use of them, but at least you will get to bump into Ernie, Cookie Monster and the Count. I personally would have liked to have seen Grouch in the game again to throw some insults and to cast some shade on Elmo. But alas, this is probably the most politically correct and child-friendly game in existence. You'll meander through some pretty ugly stages with the sole aim of picking up numbers. Then at the end of the stage you have a mini game where you'll take some math questions, and the only unexpected moment in the game was being able to bust out some tricks off the ramps in the snowboard and jet ski parts. Aside from that, this is your basic game, which would have been free of charge on the cover of PC Magazine back in 1999. But because it's on a home console and it had a nice box art, they decided to charge a ridiculous price and pretty much do people over. Released on the same day as Elmo's Letter Adventure, the games are nothing more than slight mods of one another. No doubt some poor kids back in the day had parents show up with both games in their hands, having dropped the full retail price on both games. I really do pity those kids, as I expect they too would have soon realised how little content there is in the game and also the lack of replayability of either of them. I'm a 30-something-year-old man now, and so naturally this game was never intended for me, but even as a teen when the N64 was around, this would never have appealed to me. Just avoid this title, and thankfully I'll never have to review such a poor title again now as I enter the final hurdle of reviewing N64 games. And so for today's topic of conversation, and perhaps the toughest question anyone has ever asked on YouTube, is Elmo's Letter Adventure better or worse than this title? Argue amongst yourselves in the comments section down below, and until next time.